variety, entertainment, music, dancing, happiness. It's the sort of thing that I think television should have in the back of its mind all the time, entertainment.
For me, as an Aboriginal actor, Indigenous actor in this country, there is years and years and years now of frustration about playing tokenised roles. I would so love to just go all the way and just have an all-out black show. And I would love that it could be dramatic. It could be probably comedies, probably more where we could have a lot of fun. So it would be fantastic to get some sort of, and in a funny sort of way, in that same sort of genre that Australians do so well, except it's all black actors, or give the black actors a good go anyway.
Well, for a start, it would be on time. My biggest beef of television is that the programmes start late. They're doing it on purpose, of course, to keep you watching their channel. But it irritates the hell out of me. If it says it should start at 8:30, I want it to start at 8:30, not at 20 to 9, when I should be checking my lotto results. What would it be if I made a television show? I've no idea. Yes, I do. It would be a situation comedy series with lots of roles for old performers, old well-known performers who are not being used now. There's one, someone's written something, or at least created the idea of something like that, where, like an old actor's retirement home.
I think a retirement village with these geriatrics around my age group. Retired actors' home. I think Stuart's onto something there.
I would probably make a comedy/drama series, and it would probably be, no ideas here, I haven't got anything in the pipeline, but it would probably have something to do with the environment. It would be, what I would like to do is make a show which was thoroughly entertaining but had tackled issues about the environment. Because I think that's something that we sadly miss. We're probably in this country better than anybody else in the world. What I have got an idea for, and I've never given it away, is I've had for many years up my sleeve an idea for a cooking program with a hell of a difference, and that's possibly something that I would make, because I could do it on a pretty low budget, and yeah, I know about cooking because I'm a chef, I'm a qualified chef, so yeah.
Something to do with a cooking show whereby I don't cook, where I just go around, I'm the host of the cooking show, maybe Angus's Country Kill, and go around and I don't actually cook anything, I get everyone else to cook it and then I eat it. And then give the excess to my unemployed actor friends.
If I could make a TV show, I'd like it to focus on women. I think there's a real market for that kind of stuff. Women predominantly are the ones who are watching TV, and I just think, obviously for myself, it'd probably be about women my age. In addition, having the generational influence of older and younger women as well. I'd really like to tell those stories, and like I said before, not have the women in the stories as a function to assist the male character's journey, but just be follow their story.
At this point in my life, of course, I'd love to do another pet show, and it would be something with the remarkable relationships that dogs have with people all around the world. That would be my ideal kind of work show. But, I'd love to personally. It'd be quite fun to be in like a comedy or a hit success show, like something like a Sex and the City or a Desperate Housewives or something like that, just for a bit of laughs. But I don't think I'd be any good at making one of those. I think I'd better stick to the animals.
Something set in a department store. Having worked in David Jones in the jewellery department many years ago, it's just, there's so much fodder there.
I know exactly what I'd make. I would make a sensational and very lavish, and I don't mean in terms of, rich costuming, although authentic costuming, series about Australian heroes. And I'd start with Matthew Flinders. Marvellous story, never been told on film. We can do James Cook. There's a lot. There's a great many. That's going way back, and anyway, there's a lot you could pick out. A series on Australian heroes. Pat ourselves on the back, have a look at our history, teach the young a bit about it. That's where I'd spend the money. With marvellous roles for older women.
Reality television, what a shame. Well, it's done a lot of actors out of a job, I guess.
The pendulum has to swing the other way with reality TV. I think it's been really successful over the last couple of years, but it has no longevity. I mean, people aren't watching reruns of Big Brother or Australian Idol. Once you've seen it and you get the shock value, that's kind of it.
Television goes in cycles, I guess, and that was just the cycle. I guess we had that whole infotainment, then we had houses and homes and renovations, and now we've had reality TV. It's in America, it is still crazy, and there is nothing they don't do over there. I saw a show over there where it was teenage girls, shouldn't laugh, teenage girls could win the opportunity to have a full makeover so they'd look like a movie star. And we're talking plastic surgery and everything, and these girls are like 15, 16. So I think we've gone too far on the quest for entertaining television. On saying that, I sometimes catch myself watching some of this television thinking, what am I getting out of this, apart from a bizarre view into these crazy people's lives?
I hate it with a passion. Hate it with a passion.
I don't know. Because reality TV is, from what they say, isn't it? If you're talking about Big Brother, then I don't quite know what's going on. Every time I watch it, someone's asleep in bed or chasing someone around the room, and they do it continuously, so it's sort of become a bit repetition.
Reality TV means to me that now there are thousands of people literally at the Logies.
I watched about one program. I think I watched 1.5 programs of that. One where they're all in the house. Big Brother, yeah. That, for me, was the epitome of the downfall, the beginning of the downfall of Australian television. I cannot believe how low we have gone. That is the most boring, banal... And what's worse is everyone I know was loving it. Like really, and they all justified it under this idea of, oh no, but it's a psychological study. It was fascinating watching how people reacted and dealt with certain situations. And yet... there's no way you can pretend that it's reality. There's no reality in it at all. No one acts real when there's a camera on them.
I love Big Brother.
I get really into Australian Idol, but I feel so sorry for those people because I by the second episode they're going, and I walked down the street and everyone was screaming my name and, this is unreal. And you just think, and it'll be gone tomorrow. And I just wish that people would counsel them or something to know that it's just that long, and it's not important.
I remember when Big Brother came on, I was living in the UK, and when Big Brother first started, and I remember turning around and saying to my wife, that show must never, ever get turned on in this house. Only because I'm an actor, and I think every time there's a show like that, it means myself and my colleagues get less work. I do enjoy things like Pop Idol, and then there was the X Factor, and because even though they come under the banner of reality TV shows, they're not really. They're talent shows, and we've been doing those since the beginning of television. I mean, new faces. How far back does that go?
Reality TV, I don't know. There's a demand there, so it's feeding in. It's serving some purpose. That's the way I view these things. When there's a market demand, then it's nourishing or it's feeding something within the public. Personally, I don't watch it.
It's like watching a car wreck, isn't it? You can't take your eyes away. Well, this is one punter who can take his eyes away, and if I had my own way, I guess I'd be saying not part of the quota system.
Well, it's a catch-22 situation with reality TV. People watch it because that's what's on. There is very little alternative. And also, it does. You tend to identify with one person that you want to win and see them go through. But if there was something better to watch, then I think reality TV would fall away. I hope it will.
Is reality television here to stay? Oh, I do hope not.
I think we are a nation of workers. We're very egalitarian in this country. I don't think there's a class structure really. When you're working on a film set, it's everyone pitches in to make the product, you know. You work as long as it takes. And I think we're disciplined in this country, and I think Australia has a great work ethic, and that's why we've been successful.
Australian TV production now can stand up in technique manner with England and America, with talent, there's plenty of talent, with, well, I guess it's money, isn't it? In America there's so much money you can plough into a television programme. In England there is such a huge backlog of wonderful character actors, which we don't have here. We have a good bundle of actors here, but not as many as in England, obviously. And there isn't the opportunity here for young actors to get their start in drama. There are either in Sydney, for instance, at the moment, there is Home and Away and All Saints, period. So unless you're in those, you cannot get an acting gig in television.
Having just done a production for the Americans, which was a Stephen King telemovie, The Road Virus Heads North, where I had to actually play with quite a well-known actor, Tom Berenger. And you did just get that feeling of just money was no object, you know, in costumes and you know, you had a whole team developing your makeup and designing your hairdos and your everything, and it just seemed that there was money being poured into it. Plus, in terms of comedy productions, they have so many script writers on a show, and people who are employed to just write the gags or submit 20 gags per episode or whatever. So they have vast resources of writers, and we just don't. We can't afford that luxury.
I remember when Healers was, you know, the number one here, and Friends at the time was, we started beating Friends, and they'd have a writer for each of the characters, and they'd get to perform in front of an audience, and then they'd have a rewrite then, and even then we outrated them. So there was this phenomenal writing budget for a top rating show, and yet in Australia, you know, we beat them. Mind you, there was still a lot of improvement that we could have made.
The drama that we produce in Australia, television and comedy, is very specific to our country. I think we've kind of, I suppose there's a certain style that we love producing. I'm very aware when I talk to people who have worked in America, for instance, of the huge differences in budget. For instance, I was talking to a writer, and she said to write an episode here, you'll get about $8,000. In America, you get about $80,000. So it's not even comparable how much time and effort and energy you put into that one episode.
I think our everyday TV, like our reality shows, our news, our current affairs, our local productions are every bit as good as the same genre of shows in America. Without a doubt, they're made with the same, you know, sometimes better quality. The high-end American shows we can't compete with. So the ones with the big budgets, the CSIs and those guys, I think that their production values and money that's spent on those shows is obviously so much higher. But for everyday mass-produced television, I think we absolutely compare. I think the quality, and just after working there too, just the quality of our crews and our camera guys and, should I call you camera guys? Is that really bad? But after working in the States as well, I just think the quality of our crews and our work ethic and everything, I think it's equivalent to that in America, and probably the UK as well. I found in the UK I really struggle to find television that I want to watch. I find in America you're bombarded with 1 million shows and there's nothing that you want to watch, again, except for those very high-end ones that are very big budget.
The only thing I noticed about Australian television, no matter where I go, is they work quicker here. I think that applies to films too. They work quicker here. And stage too, they work quicker and seem to work harder. You seem to be able to get in and do it. I think that's the only thing I've noticed about it, really. I'm going to bring up a sore point here now. Australian television is good, standard. It's well standard. There is some bad moments, good moments, but they do something in the UK and America that they don't do in Australia. They don't seem to want to cast people in older roles. If you look at any of the roles, everyone's to a certain age and cuts off. You might find one old fella. Look at American television and English television, and you'll see the older people have bigger roles. They're in it there. They happen to exist. But in Australia, they don't exist.
The US is a completely different situation. You know, the money that they spend on one episode of a drama, we don't spend on a lot of our feature films. So I think they're not comparable in that way. Having said that, you know, I don't know that money is necessarily the key factor to making a great television show. You know, you can make great TV and you're forced into being incredibly creative without money. I know that when we were on The Factory, that show had just no budget whatsoever. I used to steal gaffer tape from the newscars because they had a budget in the news department. We didn't. So if the back was open, I'd steal gaffer tape because we just didn't have the budget to go and buy gaffer tape for our crews. And so I just kind of, you know, do all that. But that show, to me, you wouldn't have known that show didn't have a budget because everyone was forced into a situation where our backs were against the wall and we had to make it look good and we had to use our imaginations, you know, far more than probably anyone in that network at the time. And it worked.
We're very, very lucky in this country that we actually have got a great pool of talent. And as I say, that's on all levels, but at the moment I'm talking about the acting side. I mean, I lived in the UK and I lived in America, and in both places, it's changing a bit now, but in both places, people tend to sort of be pigeonholed for a particular area of talent, whereas in Australia, because of the small amount of work and the large amount of actors looking for that work, we tend to find that as did I, we learn all the aspects of the craft. We learn the singing, the dancing, the acting, the comedy, the improvisation. Whereas, as I say, in America particularly, I found, you know, people tended to only do drama television, or only did film, or only did comedy, or only did this, and it's a lot the same in the UK as well, particularly in theatre.
Americans really succeed in providing a world for us to escape to. You know, they kind of have the ideal where everyone's beautiful and, you know, they may have big problems but they've still got their makeup on properly. And whereas the UK, I think, obviously do more gritty sort of real people stories and aren't so bothered by the exterior. And Australia, I think, is kind of in the middle of those two things. We're finding a voice a lot more. I think it's very important, though, to be aware of the cultural saturation that happens with America. And, you know, I'm a big fan of American television too, but I think it's really important for us to maintain our voice as Australians and for people to grow up hearing Australian accents coming out of the television.
I think we're really good at taking the piss out of ourselves. We don't mind getting out there and having a go and, you know, being good Aussies. And there's a fine line. So in America, they're not very good at taking the piss, but they want that kind of slapstick humour. I find it sad that we don't seem to have many comedies that do well, yet our Aussie humour is great and we all love it, and it's just such a... we have the comedians here, but for some reason we never seem to get the television shows anymore that work.
Well, I mean, how would you compare them? I mean, on what level? I mean, that's ultimately the thing. You compare our television production work compared to the Solomon Islands, and, you know, the response is laughable. No disrespect to anybody, but it's a market force there. In Britain, the capital city's 13 million people, and everyone pays television licenses, which is a massive injection of funds.
When we do comedy and it works, I think it's on a par with anyone. The British have always had the upper hand when it comes to satire, and I think the Americans have always had the upper hand when it comes to sitcom. But I think overall, when we do something and it works brilliantly.
Creatively, as a whole, as a nation, I think we're really clever. And I also believe if we did have the budget, like I said, we would do some stuff that would be absolutely mind-blowing. So the creativity of Australia put with the American budget, that'd be a good combination. Mm.